I want to tell you a story that's been on my mind this morning because of what happened yesterday. About 20 years ago, I was living in New York City. I just moved to the city. I was living with some of my sister's friends in their one-bedroom, large closet, second-floor walk-up apartment that was above a store. I was sleeping on their couch, and they had like 6 kids. We were jammed in there. Tiny little bathroom right on 2nd Avenue. I'd stop off and get a New York bagel with a schmear on it. Oh, so good. On the way to work. Never had that before. Never had it since. Lived all over the world since then, but nobody makes a bagel quite like they do in New York. Anyway, living in that tiny apartment when my sister finally passed from cancer. And I still remember sitting, I'd moved from the couch into the closet where they had a queen-size bed shoved in there and food storage bins underneath the bed, so you had to kind of climb up onto the bed. I remember sitting there sobbing after my mom had called to let me know that my sister had finally passed. And as I was beginning to grieve the loss of the passing of my sister, because I didn't lose her, she's still there, I felt her come and visit me. And she came and she sat right next to me. She squished right up and I could feel her spirit, her thigh against my thigh, with her arm around me. But I just remember our legs pressing against each other as I mourned her passing. And I think that was just really sweet that she came to visit me. Anyway, I'm strong. I get over it. I, go to church and I'm, feeling like, okay. When I prayed about her passing 2 years prior, I remember going to the temple and I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time, and I wasn't dressed for church. And so I just sat in the temple grounds and I prayed and I prayed, and I was not going to leave until I got an answer for what was going to happen to her. And I remember, after about a couple of hours, the impression came so clearly that everything would be okay. And I was like, oh, great, she's going to live. And I hopped up and, thank you, and walked to my car, and I was halfway home to Pentagon City when I realized that she could die and everything's going to be okay, and she could live and everything would be okay. And it just was like, okay, got it. We'll just see how this journey plays out. So anyway, she died. She ended up dying. And it was a torturous 2 years of cancer treatments, this and prayer that. And she came to know the Lord quite a bit while she was in that trial. So I guess that's worth it, right? So anyway, I could see the hand of the Lord, and I could rationalize with my rational brain, okay, and I was doing fine. But I don't know, there was just a Sunday, a few months after she passed, we were talking about creation and the plan of salvation, and I just got angry. And something in me snapped, and it was just like, I don't know, for the first time in my life, I thought, there are no choices. We don't have a choice. You either are or you aren't. You either, once you're on the slide, once you've gotten on like a merry-go-round slide or what, at the playground, I guess you could jump off the side of it. But literally, once the ride is started, you're on the ride until you get off, And so I was just angry that there were no choices, that somehow, I was plucked from an intelligence, a being of some kind of spiritual life spark that existed for eons, and someone plucked me out, and then now I'm a spirit, and then I either have a choice to go this way or go that way, and if you don't go this way, then you don't get anything, And if you go that way, you lose it all. And it just seemed like there is no choice. You either opt in or you opt out. And so, like, I guess I'm the type that's like, if I want something, I want it all. If I want to, and it's a major failing of mine, I want to be a perfectionist. I want to succeed. I want to be, if I'm going to take up piano, which I want to be the best pianist. If I take up organ, I want to be the best organist. If I take up, there are things that I have never done because I know that I'll fail at it. So like, I don't even try, And so that's a personal failing. To just accept good and is good enough is good enough. Okay. But in this moment, about 20 years ago, when I was sitting there in New York City, it just made me angry that I don't even know how to quantify it anymore because I understand, but it just made me angry that I felt like there was no choice. And so I walked away from church. And I stewed, and I grieved the passing of my sister, and I pulled away from God because I just didn't understand, and I was angry about being compelled, that there are no choices. So, incidentally here, before my sister died, she actually told me, the 2 weeks before she passed, I flew out from New York to see her, and I had just a few minutes to speak with her, and because she was so ill, she just didn't have strength. She slept all the time, and she was just skeletal because her body had just wasted away. And anyway, we spoke for a little bit in my naiveness. I didn't quite fully grasp what she was telling me. But she said that she saw God on his throne. She had a vision, and they didn't say any words, but their souls spoke to each other. And he just understood, and he just had so much love for her. And there's something else I have it written in my journal, but I don't have my journals with me right now, and so I can't go reference it. Maybe one day I'll share if I find it. But I remember her sharing that with me as that God had released her from this mortal life. And I remember playing devil's advocate saying, but is that really what he meant? I wanted her to live, of course, and she was just gently trying to share this experience. And I kind of miss that. But now, in hindsight, I would ask much better questions. But I didn't then. I was just young, 26, 25, Anyway, a couple of weeks later, cancer finally got her, and when her liver shut down. So today, I find myself thinking about this whole situation again, how there are no choices, that either you're on the road to Tijuana or you're on the road to New York City. You don't get to experience New York City in Tijuana, and you can't experience Tijuana in New York City. You just can't. They're opposite places. They're opposite cultures. They're opposite looks and feels. I mean, New York City, it's an island, and it's like skyscrapers, and it's noise, it's pollution, it's taxis, it's hot dog stands on the corner and street musicians. And Tijuana, I mean, I haven't been since I was like 7. I don't know. But it's like, I remember it being crowded, and I remember paper flowers, and this is 40 years ago, so I'm sure Tijuana's changed, but it's no New York City. But I remember some dirt streets, and I remember like on the edges of the town, and I remember we were crammed into a camper, and the food was really good. I remember for the very first time having mango on a stick. I mean, I don't think you really get mango on a stick in New York City, and if you do, it certainly isn't cut really prettily, and doesn't look like it and taste like it does in Mexico, fresh from the farm, Anyway, so it's a completely different experience. You get what I'm saying. For example, you can have a steak or you can have tofu. They are not the same thing, even remotely. I can raise my own soybeans. I can make them into tofu, and then with the best equipment, and I can add in chemicals or flavorings or even other fibers for texture and try to make it look or taste or smell like a steak. But nutritionally, it will never be a steak because it wasn't flesh and blood. It wasn't raised in an animal. Like, genetically, the compounds and the elements of that meat from an animal will look completely different genetically, nutritionally, fats, proteins, carbohydrates. It'll look completely different from soybeans. And so anyway, my point is that you can't have both. You choose one or you choose the other. One is not the other. So 2 days ago, when I made the choice to set down the blessings because it was inconvenient and had become too burdensome for me to continue to carry on the future promises of the Lord. I mean, that sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but we won't get into it today. Anyway, that's what I did. There were consequences. There was something that was severed, and I didn't understand it at the time. That because of the journey of the faith where I am right now today, walking forward, I can't have one without the other, meaning that I can't set down the promises that God has given me of my future and the things that I'll be doing, and also not sever my relationship and faith and trust in the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ to save my soul and protect me from the evil that's in this world. Anyway, so I lay down to go to bed last night, and I alluded to it. I don't think I did because the recording cut off, but I kind of did a little stat check with myself yesterday. Where was my faith? Where was my commitment to pick back up the burden that I've been carrying? Well, I see it as a burden, and that probably I need to think about that. Well, it's become burdensome. And of course, that's the view. I mean, like, if you were hiking through the woods, hefting a child on your shoulder because they had no shoes and you were climbing over rocks, you wouldn't see that as a burden. You would see that as an opportunity to help where it was desperately needed so that child's feet didn't get cut up. But you do it long enough, and I guess it does look like it's a burden, but it's a burden gladly borne, because of the sacrifice for that child. And so, like, can you still see it with the enthusiasm at the beginning of the journey as at the end of the journey? And that's another thing I've been thinking of, is that a lot of the times when we look at historical times of when our ancestors were on their journeys, it's really easy to pick out the end, Like, okay, pioneers crossing the plains. A lot of people had experienced a lot of hardship, my family included. I have generational histories of people on both my mother's and father's lineage who crossed the plains, first in wagons, then in handcarts, and they suffered greatly. And in fact, the people who came across in the wagons, they later went and saved the people in the handcarts, so that's kind of cool to generationally later have that connection. But the point is that when they finally reached their destination, it was over. And they kind of knew where they were going, but there was an end. And of course, now I'm thinking of the Israelites wandering in the desert for 40 years. Did they understand when they set out that it was going to be 40 years? Get used to it. But at what point did it become an unbearable burden and one of just perseverance and tenaciousness to carry on? I don't know. It's hard. Life is hard, man. So here I am evaluating myself on this journey and having snippets of hymns and songs come to my mind of carrying on and pressing forward and doing your duty with a heart full of joy. And it's so funny because all these things are just in my mind, but it's an obligation that the Spirit has put on me to look forward to and work toward the ability to serve others in a greater capacity at some point in the future. Anyway, it's become a burden. Anyway, so that's a nice little tangent. It's a little food morsel for you to think over in your week this week. So yesterday I'm taking stock and kind of evaluating where I am. And I as I was thinking about it, I felt mostly in place. And I settled on the percentage of 90%, that I was 90% re-engaged. But that last 10% was going to be a wrestle, that I needed to wrestle through some things to think about and understand, acknowledge, and fully re-engage on different topics. And so I knew I wasn't at 100%, but I still went to sleep courageous that I could be protected and hopeful that I could be protected in my sleep. So I lay down every single time I closed my eyes for the first, 10, 15 minutes. It wasn't like the night before, but there were dark arms with claws again, and there were dark faces melting in front of my eyes into skulls. And anything that was could be scary, like they were trying to scare me. And I wasn't really afraid, but I didn't want to see it. It took a while, but I just thought of my shields. I actually started humming a song again, and it took a while to reimpose my will on my space in my room to bar darkness from entry. And then I prayed. I asked God for protection. And fortunately, I slept well last night and woke up at 9. Went to bed at 1. Woke up at 9. So here we are having choices. So I'm thinking about choices. And I either can have the protection of the Lord or I can't. And then you feel like you have no choice. You're compelled to believe. You're compelled because what I want is God's protection. But He won't protect me unless I fully put my trust in Him with an eye single to His glory. And so it's like put your money where your mouth is. Do you believe or do you not believe? And that's a hard thing because the things that have been whispered to my ears are crazy town. And so I just wanted to set it down and live a semi-normal, just plain good life. But you can't. I can't. Because at the stage of my faith and my own personal journey of where I'm at, I can't have one without the other. Meaning I can't have the protection of God from the evil and darkness of this world unless I fully and firmly believe every single thing that the Holy Spirit of truth witnesses to my heart of what's coming and what I will be doing. And that's kind of a crappy place to be in, can I just tell you? And so you're like, okay, just get with it. Yeah, that's hard. And so I find myself remembering that time 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, where I distanced myself from the Lord because of choices and not feeling like I had a choice. And so let me tell you a little bit about what brought me back. I happened to visit a temple, and the sweet spirit of peace sang so true to my soul that I thought, what in the hell have I been doing? I don't want to leave this. This is something I want. And so I worked my way back into faith, into activity in the church. And while my unhappiness with God was backburnered, I don't remember when it was. I've journaled about it. I've kept journals in my life. I'd encourage you to do the same. Keep them as a small plates record of your own spiritual journey, the promptings that you've had and the wrestles that you've had with the Lord. I'd encourage you to start right now and start to write about what's on your mind and what you're thinking and the impressions that come and what you do about them. Anyway, so I wrote about it. I don't have my journals with me right now. They're in storage on the other side of the country. So, at some point, through whisperings of the Spirit, I came to understand deeply, rooted into my soul, that we have always had a choice. Even as those intelligences, we had a choice. And what I've kind of come to my mind, because I don't really know what an intelligence is, I kind of get this little thought of Minions, those little yellow minions in the Minions movies, kind of bobbing up and down, going, pick me, And so, like, how long did we sit on the sidelines of eternity, of the universe, of this cosmic experience as intelligences, seeing what's going on, watching it work, watching the wheels turn, cosmic forces at play, watching spirits be born, die, pass away, be resurrected, go on to eternal glory. How many cycles have we watched in that form as an intelligence? When we finally got up the guts to say, I want to turn. But that's exactly what happened, is we sat on the sidelines. Some of us were like overeager. We maybe made the leap before we were prepared. And now we're here. We're like, oh crap, now what am I in for? And other people, I think like me, because I tend to be really hesitant and overthink things. I probably sat on the sidelines for a really, really long time. And then when God came along, I'm like, yeah, I pick you. I want to give it a try with you. And he said, I pick you back. Let's go. So I think we picked each other. And then he created our spirits. Our Father in heaven created our spirits from those intelligences. And so the thing is that I already opted in. The spirits told me that's true. And it made an incredible difference because I did have a choice. I watched the cycle play out. I understood to my limited knowledge what I was getting into. And I thought, I want that. And I pulled the lever. I did my little pick me with the guy that I thought would get me there. God, the eternal Father. And here I am on earth living that experience. So I can't cry foul now. I chose to come here. I chose to become a spirit. I chose to opt in. I kept my first estate, meaning my life. I made good choices in the spirit world, and I was able to move forward in progression to this earth where I received my mortal physical body. And there's something awesome about the unification of the spirit with a physical form. And when I'm dead from this earth, I will move forward with a resurrected, glorified body, which can do even more, and I'll live forever and continue on my path of progression, which is so cool. So, which takes us back to, there are choices, and at heart, I'm a perfectionist. Not everybody is. That's fine, but I am, and I already chose, and I already opted in. So, of course, there aren't any choices. I made the biggest one eons ago. And now I am here on earth blindly trying to be true to my core spirit and tendencies. And that's the only thing we can do. So, I'm in the camp that I firmly believe that we sat down with God or Jesus Christ, probably both of them, and we planned out like a college counselor, a good one, not the bad ones, a good one. But I sat down and planned out my life with them before I even came here. And they're like, okay, you're going to need to have a course in divorced parents because that's going to help you learn X, Y, and Z. That's going to help you on your eternal journey to understand the commitment needed when you enter into the holy vows of matrimony and connect and commit to another person and then to raise a family. There was something in divorce. So, of course, I get down here and my parents are divorced. Traumatic. And then he's like, okay, and you should probably have a course in Haiti so you can learn about loss and hopelessness and the evil hearts of men and greed and corruption and how that can destroy a whole civilization. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll sign up for that. And here I am, a little over a decade, maybe decade and a half ago, I sign up and I go to Haiti, and that just about broke me in every conceivable fashion. It destroyed my heart and hope, seeing the hopelessness of the people there, living there for a year. Oh boy, was that a lesson. Walked away with good lessons from that. And just barely survived it myself. I was so distraught, I almost, I'm almost unalived myself. So, there's that. So life is interesting. So now here I am talking to you, and I'm And I've kind of delayed having this conversation with myself because I really didn't want to have it. But now I'm having it with you. So I'm having to have an aha moment here in this moment that I probably signed up for an unending journey across the plains with no destination, but with perseverant hope in Christ. Oh! So there's something here I'm supposed to be learning. And that's what I've been banging my head against the wall for the last year and a half is, what is it that I'm learning? I've learned for myself that I'm tenacious. I've learned that I mostly am patient, although I do get impatient about the wait. I guess it relayers on trust in the Lord, that He is the ultimate orchestrator of our lives and our experience here on earth. And that if we just wait for the perfect penultimate pinnacle moment, He'll give us the signal to go. And off we'll go and do our work, and it'll be the perfect layering right at the perfect time. Think of orchestral piece with cymbals, and that cymbal guy who's playing the cymbals is back there for 35 minutes, counting measures, waiting for his opportunity to crash those cymbals. But he does, and when it happens, everybody's like, wow, perfect! Because it just adds the perfect element to the ensemble, to the piece. So, anyway, my point is that theoretically I get it. Logically I get it. But your soul and your spirit, can you muster up the hope and the courage to carry on? And that's where I find myself. And as I speak these words, I'm feeling a sweet softness of peace from the Spirit. And I think to myself, that's where it lies. That's where the courage and the fortitude comes from, is that when you can remember that peace and know that you're on the path, even though you don't see things coming together, you have enough strength to carry on. And that in itself is a beautiful thing. So, I guess that's where I'll leave you today. Choices. You can't have one and not the other. Did I say that right? If you pick one, you can't have the other. And you have to figure out what you want. And are you on the path that leads you to what you want? That really is the end goal. I guess I could tack on here that God doesn't care what path you choose, except that you are true to yourself and the path that leads to your full potential. He doesn't care if you spend your life learning to surf and you breathe, sleep, and dream about the ocean currents and the sea life and catching the next wave and the perfect board. He wants you to be happy. He wants you to pick and choose. He wants you to choose things and experience things in life that bring satisfaction, fulfillment, and purpose. And so, on the course of riding those waves, if you're kind to your fellow beings, your fellow man, you're doing good unto others, you're uplifting where you stand, those are important things. And so, I think of rockers for Jesus, jamming out their hard rock, heavy metal, whatever. If in their hearts they love the Lord, actually, they chose Jesus Christ. That's why they're here on earth in their mortal physical bodies, is because they chose the Savior already. That's why they got to come. That's an important thing to remember, is that you already chose. You're already a winner. You will be redeemed. You will be resurrected. The question is what do you want in the long run, and are you on the path to get it? Because not all roads lead back to our Father in heaven. And ultimately, that's what I want. God knows I won't be happy if I can't return to Him and live in His presence. And so, for me and the path that I walk, at the stage of progression that I'm at, I can't not believe in these whisperings of the Spirit and also return to Him. So, that's where I am. We'll see how I'm feeling the rest of the day and where I am tomorrow, and if I can continue to buckle down and gather my courage to carry on for an indefinite amount of time later. And maybe you're experiencing something similar. Oh, my advice for you, if you're in a similar situation, let's see. I would urge you to be true and have integrity, intellectual integrity, to the deepest yearnings of your soul and the impressions and whisperings of the Spirit that have come, because therein lies truth. And if you can reconcile yourself to those truths, you can and will find the courage and strength to carry forward. Good luck. Let's talk again.